Do. Great. Thank you so much, Christine, for joining us today to share your knowledge of invention and some tips and tricks for getting started with invention and what that looks like with students.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Hi, Brandy and Amber. My name's Christine Lawlor-King. I'm an invention educator. So I started out as a science teacher and then was moved to STEM and then was voluntold to go to a training about, actually, that was my voluntold go to a training on STEM is how my English teacher principal referred to it. So I go, it happens to be about invention. I bring that back to my classroom and it completely transformed my students. And I taught in an inner city. Um, since that first kind of jaunt into invention, now I get to work at schools all over the country. I'm left my own classroom, but I'm still in the classroom. I'm in multiple classrooms all over the country, helping teachers to teach invention, to raise inventors. And then these kids go on to numerous events, including science fair and something I'm passionate about, Invention Convention, which I think you learned a little bit about. That's why I left my classroom to help the Connecticut Invention Convention. And then we actually formed the National Invention Convention program. So huge. I so believe in the power of events for our students to go to and talk about their work and present their work. So let me, and this is like not formal at all. I no ego, like no high-powered consultant here. Like whenever you have a question, drop it in the chat or totally come off mute, no problem. If I'm gonna get to it, then I'll say, oh, I'll get to that later, but absolutely interrupt away. And we will do a little activity, so it will be a little of me talking, an activity, and then we'll close out but want to make sure you feel comfortable on how to start invention because I completely get how overwhelming it might seem. Um, so a lot of kids' pictures in this. Every kid's picture has a story to tell. This little girl, this was her first journey into STEM through invention, and she created a laundry basket that was remote controlled because her mom was in crutches and in a boot and could no longer carry the laundry basket. So, and I was like, wait, I've needed that in my life so many times. And she was so awesome. She had to change into her heels before presenting because she's like, that's when I feel most powerful. And I was like, you go, girl. Um, so here's me. Please take down my email. Would love to connect with you outside of this if you have any questions. But again, I'm an invention educator. Now I get to consult with a lot of different organizations and schools, but my best times are in the classroom. So I stay in the classroom as much as I can. And now I get to work with students of all grades from all different schools, rural, urban, parochial, public, high school, elementary, you name it. But this is where I got my start at a Title I failing school because we could not pass the standardized testing. Um, Lots of violence in the school. We were actually on the news if not nightly, it was weekly for another um, something that would happen in the school. Um, Kids not on math level, not on reading grade level. Um, every class seemed to have so many kids below grade level, and then gifted kids or honors kids or kids that were excelling in the different subjects. And we had no gifted program, we had no honors program. Everyone was in the same class and kind of like, go and deal with it, teachers. That's you can do that. And so I did through invention. So by year 3 of teaching invention, um, it was amazing. We had more kids signed up for Invention than we did for our sports, and we were a very heavy sports school. So our football and basketball teams were always amazing. That was always celebrated. The kids got to wear their jerseys to school. But by year three, I was demanding that we wear our STEM shirts to school because we were going to events and presenting within the state, and these kids were coming to life. We were on the news for positive things and for academics for the first time ever. And it just brought our entire school to life, but especially these kids. So I know you've done a little bit on invention education, where students are choosing their own problem. They're doing research to make sure that they have that unique solution. They're building prototypes, they're failing. I think I saw some things about failing on the PowerPoint that I saw about your in-person training, I think. And then again, my personal passion is getting them to whatever events and as many events as you can. Also, media opportunities. Even when I'm not connected with an event, I host one within the school I'm in, or I send out a press release to get some of these kids on the news because people are fascinated by little kids coming up and high schoolers coming up with such wonderful ideas. I can usually land some media stories for them and get them on the local news or sometimes even national programs. So I love just having the kids leave the classroom and talk about their work. So how do you fit all of this in? Where does it belong? When you already have a packed schedule, I was teaching a tested science class in which the kids were already failing the science test. So, how could I possibly fit this in when we're not even getting to all the content and the kids are failing? So, first, I did fit it into my tested science class. If the kids are already failing, then why aren't I trying something new? So I started Invention Fridays. So every Friday, regardless of the content we were on, we stopped and we worked on our our inventions. Also, I had them do a lot of it at home. And this was super scary because my students did not do homework. Um, but when it came to invention time and solving a problem they cared about, all of a sudden they weren't just doing the homework, they were doing extra work and coming in and go, we've got to film commercials. And like they were adding to my schedule because they were so into it. They were dreaming up work to do. So you can put this into a tested science class. And then this is what I do. I go around and help teachers fit it in or schools fit it in where it belongs. You could do an invention unit. So you take a unit, either shorten other units or remove a unit and throw an invention and do some type of invention unit. You can do it after school. That's where I brought it to my middle school. So they didn't have, none of the science teachers wanted to take that on. So I was like, okay, then I'll stay after school with the kids because they really, every single kid needs to do that. So we did an after school program at the middle school level. You can embed invention and innovation into topics. So when I'm teaching about climate change, we better teach about innovation and problem solving right alongside of that. So we were exploring some inventions in within climate change and thinking of identifying the problems with climate change and how we could solve them. There were times I had no time to do this. So we didn't build out a full prototype, but we identified problems, we dreamed up solutions, and then we even wrote them out on paper, just to get the kids creatively problem solving and thinking like innovators. It could be an enrichment project. I work with a lot of gifted and talented. I'm not sure what it's called in Wyoming. Sometimes it's called talented and gifted. Sometimes we reverse um, the names there, but A lot of people do this as enrichment, and it becomes that at-home project that they have check-ins throughout the year. You can do it right before a break when everyone's exhausted, including you. I would do an invention type activity, actually, a couple that I'll show you today. Um, the kids were so into it, they were learning, they were having fun, and I could sit back and just be like, okay, let me get these last papers graded before break. Um, it could be right after a break when you come back exhausted and not really looking forward to starting. So after some breaks, and the kids are sleepy and groggy and cranky on those first couple of days, I wouldn't go right into our topic. I would do invention and we would do a super fun activity to get us all kind of um, woken back up and ready. You can do it during testing so that you're not teaching new content. They're just having fun with invention while they're testing. And summer, of course, if you run a summer camp at your school. Because invention education, it's a spectrum. You can start with one activity. In this picture, I am doing an activity with kindergartners in which we're asking them to think about their pets or animals and identify the problems they have. So many of the kids had pets. There were a couple that didn't, but they were thinking about when they were at a zoo and the problems that they saw. So we're coloring, we're drawing, we're just talking about these things. So this can be one activity to get your ball rolling. And again, those one activities right before and after break are amazing. Next kind of part of the spectrum is that they're working on their own problem. So they're identifying a problem that they're passionate about solving, and they're carrying that through, whether it is just a drawing or whether it's an actually building a prototype. And then they can present that to each other, they can present that to people in the school, or the end of the spectrum is presenting at a formalized event. This picture is from the California State Railroad Museum, where we just hosted 250 inventors a couple of weeks ago there with their inventions, and then they get to spend the rest of the day at the museum. It's so cool. There are these types of events everywhere, and if there's not an event in your school, even getting into an event in your school, like a parent night, like a literacy night, even having your inventors get to those types of events is super cool because they feel the pride when they're talking about their work. So it's a spectrum. You don't have to go right to events if you don't want to. When I went from STEM to invention, I started to think about my own unit plans differently. So, a unit I used to love to teach was STEM, and it was about does this town have the capacity to support an amusement park? So it involved math and measurements and all of that. It involved engineering, trying to plot out the land. Certainly science, technology, all of that. Love the kids always loved that unit. I loved it. Then I learned about invention, so we took it one step forward. Still did that, still tried to figure out, do we have the enough room in the town or city to support this? But then we also started to think about um, amusement parks when we've gone. And what are the problems that we have in, I mean, when we're at amusement parks? And then we started to think of some original solutions. And actually, one of my students this year is presenting his work. Um, he was trying, the big problem he saw was that his parents were getting so angry by the cost of amusement parks. And just having got back from Universal Hollywood, I understand why his parents are angry. They were particularly angry about the food and drink costs. So he came up with a way that you can host two drinks in one cup. And those could even be two drinks of separate temperatures. So if his sister wanted a hot chocolate and he wanted a Sprite, this one cup, he had this material that kind of formed two cups within that cup. You have separate straws. I mean, he has literally thought of all of it, and he will be presenting his work at an event. And I would love to get Disney World, even to just like talk to him. We've been in touch, even just to talk to him, to give him some more ideas because he truly is onto something. And he's really thought of everything. So I would love for them to just say either, hey, great job, or oh, have you thought of this? But more on that. More on that. So I started to think of my own, okay, here's all these activities I do throughout the year. Which ones is it best to add some type of creative problem solving to invention? Which am I going to leave alone? And frankly, which topics could I shorten or abandon to get to super cool real world learning and applying all of this science stuff we're learning into the real world? But I hope one of my bosses didn't hear me say abandon. So, in this amusement park lesson that we're doing, we are touching upon every standard possible. We were looking at amusement parks of the past and the different inventions that have come from being at an amusement park. We were writing in logbooks, we were doing research, we were doing so much math and scale modeling. Um, the students that were separately in coding, they were coding apps that could be used at an amusement park that they wanted to see. The art in Invention is amazing. I mean, they've got to build this model, they've got to paint it, draw it, they've got to make their logo, all of these things for their new invention. So there, I always say there's not a standard that invention doesn't hit. So how do you get started? There's some resources, and I just found out like a half hour before that all the QR codes I had for these no longer work. So unless I spent $500 in the year, I didn't realize it was a paid plan. Um, so I guess my pilot ran out or my trial ran out. So I'll send this to you, and you can certainly have all of these websites. The Invent Ed Toolkit are actually resources that I wrote from my own classroom. Like these were all things I needed. There's parent letters. Um, there is a checklist of things that you should think about before starting invention education. There is a letter to potential funders. So if you know of like a business in your area and you want to kind of see if they have materials or money, there's letters there that you can use. So lots of things in there for you to be able to use as you begin your invention program. And again, that could be just in your own classroom, not even going to events. The USPTO, amazing resources. I was a subcontractor there for a while and got super into intellectual property. And I originally thought kids don't want to learn that. Kids don't need to learn it. It's boring. If we make it exciting, it is super exciting and relevant. Trademarks, nothing is more relevant because we are surrounded by logos and taglines. And I've had so much fun, even teaching kids in kindergarten about intellectual property. So great resources there. Um, Kahoots. So I made a bunch of Kahoots for the Invention Convention worldwide, and it is the steps of an invention process. And there's kids' videos on there that then they're talking about their process, and then kids are responding through those Kahoot games. And then the University of Iowa, we have an invention and entrepreneurship materials and resources. So it's good to check them out as well, especially for that entrepreneurship business planning route if you want to take that with your students. But again, you will have all of these websites at your service. So the first thing I did when I was starting this was I found myself an invention process. I think at that point I had used one I found on MIT's website, let's say. This one that I have here, when we were forming the National Invention Convention, there was a bunch of us that got together from different states, and we came up with this process. This was what we were all kind of teaching our kids to do. Um, so I still use this now, no matter if I'm doing invention convention event or not, because I need a process to ground myself in, and then I need a process for my students to understand where they are and how much farther they have to go or how close they are. So you'll see this is definitely this process and other invention processes. It's more than the engineering design process. The engineering design process is a part of this, and then invention just bookends in the engineering design process with that originality research and then the entrepreneurship piece of owning a new product and needing a name and a tagline and a logo. I use these steps to this day to plan. So if I have 2 months to do this, then I will take each of these steps and lay them out. If I have a week in a school to do this, I lay out these steps. So let me just show you what I mean by that. So I take these steps and then I figure out how much time I have. And then I kind of flex those weeks or days. This says weeks, but it could be days. Um, and I figure out how to fit it all in. So the first thing I always do is a kickoff. So you're going to see a couple of activities tonight that you could use as a kickoff. Super simple, low material finding, low prep, which I always love. And I just get the kids thinking like innovators because this is not how we're teaching them in school. This is so creative. This is out of the box thinking. So a lot of the times during that kickoff, kids are like, is this the right answer? Is this the right answer? And there's no right answer in invention unless you don't do anything. So I always want to do a kickoff to kind of get them thinking outside of the box so that they can continue to do so. Then problem identification, that's the biggie. What are the problems either in the topic we're learning about or in your everyday life? And that usually takes a bit because that's again a new skill that they're not necessarily used to in their other classes. So we've got to work on how we identify problems and what a problem or a challenge or an issue even is. And then the research comes in, looking at Google Patents to figure out, and Amazon and Target, what else is out there that's like my solution and how can mine be different. Designing is putting it to paper, building and testing. And then again, I always have them do a presentation, whether it's right in the classroom and I invite the principal in, or it's a family night and families come in, or if it is a big event somewhere. So using those steps of invention always help me to plan. And this is what problem identification looks like, just a huge, messy brainstorm. This was littler kids. This was, I think, third grade, fourth grade kids. And they discuss and throw out crazy problem ideas. And that's awesome. That's exactly what we want. A lot of video game issues, hair issues, homework issues. Um, at that point, some of the kids were still they were wearing masks, so still talking about the masks issues. So it's messy, it's crazy, and I keep these posted in my classroom so that the kids are kind of surrounded by these problems um, because I want them to just continue to look for problems in everything that we do. Okay, before we start with the activity, are there any questions coming to mind that I can answer right now? Okay, that maybe is a good sign. If there were a lot of questions, then I was in trouble. Okay, so I talked about a kickoff. So what does that look like? This is like a great activity to do. This works with kindergartners and this works with people, adults. It's called Innovation Mashup. And there's a way I'll tell you how to do it in your classroom and then we'll do it quickly, but obviously it's different because we're virtual. So, Innovation Mashup is based on a real world creative problem solving technique. But it's abbreviated. So random input technique gets people thinking creatively and thinking outside of the box. It is the introduction of randomness to either identify a problem or think of a solution. So it's a lot of random words, objects, images, etc. So when you introduce randomness, you're forming these new pathways in the brain to think of things you have not thought of before. So in the classroom, I usually, and again, this is done a couple, random input technique is done a couple different ways. In this case, I give them one item. So I have these cutouts of items, products, whatever, and you'll see some on the next slide. You have one of your inventors take one. I always do it out of a hat or a paper bag or something. And then they partner up. So you'll have your students partner up. One has a cell phone, let's say, one has a fan. They partner up and they need to come up with a new product that combines both of these items. I also give them an adjective. So now the partnership has two items and an adjective that they need to work in. So they can work in the concepts of these items. They can work the adjective into their name or product design. But it's super cool way to get your kids thinking like possibly they've never thought before because there are no rules in this anymore. So they brainstorm ideas together, they sketch their favorite idea, they name it, they draw a logo, they write a tagline like Nike's Just Do It. And then they present their new product to the class. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this obviously in a much abbreviated version because we're virtual. So instead of me walking around with a hat of these little cutout products, what I want you to do is take an object from row A and then take an object from row B. And what you're going to do is you are going to combine the two objects together. If you have paper and pen, just give it a quick sketch. Think of a name for your new product, draw a logo, and write a tagline. So let's see, how about at 5 minutes, I'll see if we need more time. How about that? So from row A, row B, take one item from each, combine them, sketch it, name it, draw a logo, and write a tagline. Let me set my 5 minutes.
I also just tried to start a timer. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Okay, let's see.
Can you see it?
Timer.
It said share with everyone, but I don't know if it did.
It it shared, but it didn't open to, oh, it opened to, like Zoom advertising the timer.
Oh, dang it. Oh well,
Okay, I'm going to
I
stop share for
tried.
just a second to get back to that. No, it's fine. It's
My
fine. Zoom takes you on crazy, wild rides.
Yeah.
mine mine opened up to a little timer in the box and then a bigger open panel. So it worked for me.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
wait, I see it now. It's on my
Yay.
little sharing screen.
But
This little,
yeah,
yep.
and it's green. It's got a
Yay.
green box around it.
Mine is like,
Perfect.
yeah, it's very,
So,
very tiny. So I hope
Yeah.
mhm.
So, yeah. Okay.
so it worked. Whatever I clicked on the like, you need this timer on the Zoom,
Great. Glad it
it
worked.
worked.
Perfect. Okay, so it looks like we got like 3 minutes and 40 seconds. We can always add
Yes.
time too if we need.
Yes, absolutely.
Got about 30 seconds. How are we feeling?
I know I'm done, although I completely didn't pay attention to my own rules. I got too excited about two of the objects in the same row.
I'm ready with an idea.
Great.
The music's amazing.
I was gonna say, did y'all hear that music too? That's great.
It was very Academy Awards. Like I
Yes.
feel like the playoff, like you've spoken for too long. Time to
That's
get
true.
off the stage.
That's so true.
That
Great.
was awesome. Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Now who wants to dun 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 enter the Shark Tank?
I can go first. It's hard for you
Great.
to see my picture though.
I know, true.
It is pretty sad. It's very stick figurey. But
Me too.
anyway, so I have been working on my camperall or my tent camper. It's really just a tent on a box, but I combined the tent and the camera. And then I drew a picture of like something that sits on top of a tent with a camera that would like swivel 360 degrees. And then I drew an eyeball in front of a bear, like facing out toward the audience, and the eyeballs facing out. And then I put Barrett spelled with Bear. And it says, nature will no longer be covered in dark. Expose your night camp trespassers.
That is all of that is amazing. Like
I
That's
like that.
perfect.
that product, and then you've got a marketing mind.
That's great.
Oh,
Like I've been camping with students before, and all of them in the morning will have stories about how, oh my gosh, a bear came by our tent, or there's, and so then with this, we'd be able to actually know. Like,
they would be like, I checked the tape, there was no bear. I love that.
That's
That
great.
is awesome, Brandy. That is awesome. Okay, who wants to go next?
I guess I will.
Do it.
Okay. So I couldn't think. It took me a long time to combine two things. So I took the lifesaver and the flashlight and thought you could call it a light saver. And so I
Ooh.
kind of did, oh, hopefully this shows up. Oh, I have green paper. That's not gonna
Oh
work.
no.
Let's see, will it show up in front of my face if I do this? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I
Oh
can
yeah,
see
yeah,
it.
that's better. That's better. Yep.
Let me tip it. Hold on a second. There we go. Oh
Oh,
man. Okay, I just got
yeah.
There's like the tipping point where it works.
yeah. So right here is like my
Okay.
um circle
Here, you know what?
lightsaber.
Let me stop
And
the share, and then we'll be able to
and
see it
it's
better.
got, well, I can probably fix my background thing,
Yeah,
but
no, we can see it.
there we go. So I thought if you put lights on it, maybe on the side, I didn't draw it very well. And then you could have it basically rescue anybody anytime, kind of like at nighttime. So at night, if they rescue somebody, it's got lights on it. And you could maybe turn them off and on, and the person could do an SOS kind of thing, maybe. But
Oh.
then I did a little sun, a circle with a sun rays on one side and the moon on the other, and then an LS like a circle because it's a circle. So
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how to do ways of an L and an S and all that. So ignore all these. That was ideas. But that's the one I came up with was basically the little. Oh yeah, that won't work either. I should have used white paper. Sorry,
Oh,
but
that's okay.
that's more what it was the logo, and then the idea was a little combine the lights and the light saver.
I
But
think
I
you
don't know
ladies are on to something. I mean, I don't want to tell your principals you're quitting because you're going on to product development.
if something.
That's great. That's really smart. So, because I'm sure there's lots of cases where, I mean, there's even famous cases of boats needing, help in the nighttime. So I'm sure
Yeah.
there's people that also need that kind of help in the nighttime. So having the lights would be really helpful.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. That was a great idea. And you have a good name too and a tagline and like you are there.
Yeah, I was like, maybe it's too similar to Life Saver.
No, I like
No,
it.
Oh, I
I mean,
liked that.
yeah,
That I
I
liked
liked
that
it.
play on words.
Hmm.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really clever. Laurel, do you have
Thank
an
you.
amazing product?
I have a product. Actually,
Great.
it was so funny. Brandy, you and me were same wavelength because I also chose camera and the tent.
Cabin
But
fever.
yeah, but mine was to make, my idea is I think about how often there's different events that people need f to photograph, but then you can't control the weather, right? So what if you made a camera-sized tent that could go over the camera And then, you still have the front open just like around the lens, but then you're able to protect the rest of the camera. And so mine, let me see, I might have to turn off my blur maybe. I'm gonna turn that off. I don't know if you can see, but I called it the camera camper.
Oh, that's cute.
And that's the logo and the drawing of what it would look like. It's the
Oh
same
my
thing.
gosh.
And then my tagline is, "Don't let weather put a damper. Keep taking photos with camera camper." I called it
Oh,
It's so
Hello, I
cute.
think that's Shark Tank ready.
that.
yeah.
I love it.
So yeah, it's a little camera camper.
Oh my gosh, that commercial, I can picture it already with that
Mhm.
saying.
Yeah, and it's lightweight materials, so even backpackers could take it with them if they're taking a
Yep.
camera with them. Although I don't know if they're taking big cameras with them or not, but yeah.
But they need the camera camper regardless.
Yeah, like wedding photographers, I feel like, it could
Yes,
be
yep.
helpful.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I love that. That is
Great.
awesome. Well, to Brandy's point, you definitely do not have to be an artist to do this. Like a lot of the kids go, I can't draw. I mean, no one would even know here, let me, no one would even know what mine was unless and then, so I have the lit hat because it is a dog walking hat that has flashlights or lights in it, but it's not one of those like winter hats. Like I want a fashionable hat. So it's kind of looks like a sombrero. Um, but I want like a fashionable hat that has the lights when you go out to walk your dog at night. And I called it the lit hat. And then dog walking just got lit because I'm still saying lit, even though the kids are like, Miss, no one says lit anymore. And I'm like, I am using that to my grave. I'm using lit and I'm using fire. And I don't care what's cool
Yeah.
with you guys. I'm still using these. Um, so
That's great.
I think we might have something here, ladies, all of us. We might have to go into business, make these products, and
Hmm.
then tell everyone, sorry, we've moved on to other things. Or write Shark Tank and get right on there
Hmm.
and let them know they can have a dog walking hat or or
And
a
if
double tent thing
Hmm. Yep.
where we've
well, if
got the
your
tent
kid,
with the camera and then we have a tent for a camera.
if
Or
it's a bad
also, oh,
storm,
sorry.
as I say, if it's a bad storm and all of us have our products, next to the river and the lake, and you can use the hat to help look for the person in the water.
Oh
Yep,
yeah,
we got
that's
this, people.
true.
And then we save the
Yeah.
person in the water with
Hmm. And
the
I think
lightsaber.
Yeah, and I think Brandy's camera that's on top of the tent could also have its own little camera camper on it. It's kind of like a double tent situation. I mean, you
Yes.
got to protect the camera.
Mhm.
Little.
I love that. And that's like
Awesome.
it's what we want the students to do. Like when the kids are presenting their work, you want students to say, "Hey, yours and mine together could do
Mm-hmm.
this." Or, "Wow, have you thought about this?" Like you want them to give feedback to each other and then even go back to that drawing board. So after they present their work, and then the tent and camera people are like, okay, we're on to something here. They team up and redesign, or you redesign based on some feedback you've gotten. Like, this is such a perfect kickoff to Invention because it previews everything you want them to do. Get feedback, give feedback, go back to the drawing board, do it again with other people's um, opinions and thoughts in there. And anytime you say Shark Tank to the kids, they're about it. They're like, all of a sudden, a presentation isn't as scary when you say, who wants to present to the Shark Tank? Then they're like, sure, sure. Um, so it's always so much fun. Now, this was one random input technique. There's another cool one where you have a problem you want to solve and you're starting to think about solutions, but obviously you're coming up with solutions you kind of already know. And again, with random input technique, you just throw out random words for them to include in their solution. And at some point, they're going to hit a bingo because of all the randomness. And This is a real world product design and engineering technique, random input. It is actually how Campbell's Chunky Soup was created. So all the executives, they have their chicken noodle soup, their tomato soup, they're in a room and they know they need a new product. They've been living off these like watery soups for years. So they want to come up with a new product. So they start random input. So again, no logic, just let the ideas flow when the words come up. And the word happened, the first word was apartment. Apartment led to building, build, tools, hammer, saw, drill, knife, and then fork. And then one of the executives said, well, you can't eat soup with a fork unless it had chunks. And then that's when they kind of went on that tangent that, okay, maybe it's time that we are, um, here's our new product and Chunky Soup was born. So I love to have the kids using real world techniques that they might use in their job one day. Another great place to start, but it's messy. You've got to be willing to get messy. But this is all hands on deck, full engagement. Um, I always have gloves ready and because I want them, but I'm like, oh gosh, some of the kids are going to want gloves. And then they all rip them off to get crazy with ketchup. But ketchup, so many problems with little ketchup packets. We go into kind of the history of ketchup, some of the first patents on ketchup bottles. We talk about the trademarks like Heinz and all these different ketchup companies. And then we look at the ketchup packet and how terrible those things are. And yeah, there have been some improvements to it, but those improvements have cost restaurants a lot of money. So not every restaurant is getting those more expensive tear open, more containers. So we look over our packet, we use it, we squeeze it out, and then we take note of all of the problems we had with it. We talk about how did you open it? Or did your finger slip? Could you even open it? Did it make a mess opening it? Could you get all of the ketchup out? So they're kind of scribbling down all of the problems they're noticing with this ketchup packet. We talk about how the bottle or the packaging of ketchup has even changed and been innovated over the years because people saw a problem with it. It was hard to get, you're like this. It was hard to get all of the ketchup out. So now the lid has moved to the bottom. So we just start to talk about how can we make ketchup packets on the go better, just like Heinz has made their packaging better for when it's in the refrigerator. We sketch it out, we brainstorm ideas, we sketch out our favorite ideas. We talk to people about our ideas to see like, oh, what do you like this or how could I prove it? Then we go back. We do some revisions on our new solutions. And then they think about this new solution that they have. Is it going to drive up the cost to restaurants like this particular package has or packet has? Um, what changes did you make and why? Who would buy this? Who is in the market for this type of revised or innovated ketchup packet? And they give a presentation. Now, we don't usually build because there's not much building, but it's more so you could, if you had some just random supplies and materials, you could build this for sure. But we always draw it out, seek feedback, redraw, and then do a presentation on it. So, not necessarily building, but it's getting them thinking about it's changing the narrative of everything has been invented to everything can be innovated upon. So those are just a couple of different activities to start. Again, one messier than the other one. And those can take a class period if you have one class period, or you could draw that out for a week or two, depending on, do you have the time to build? Do you have the time for your inventors to get feedback? Do you have the time for presentations? So any type of invention activity can take you one class period or multiple. So hopefully those couple can get you started if you were looking to start. And now is honestly, the end of the year is a great time to dip your toes in because you know the kids are done, you're done. So if you try innovation mashup for a day or a week, they're having fun, they are learning. And then as a teacher, you're like, okay, I can do this because that was my hardest part. I didn't run home from my first PD that I was voluntold to go to. I ran home crying and said I couldn't do this because I'm not an engineering teacher or a tech teacher at that time. And yet, once I just started one activity, then I was like, oh my gosh, my kids can do this and I can do it. So it's a great time to start just dipping your toes in the invention world. And here's my email again. Absolutely reach out if you need any help or just someone to bounce ideas off of, even. And I'm going to stop sharing that.
Yay. Thank you so much, Christine. This
Thank
has been
you.
so
Thank
fun and
you.
helpful and informative. Um, Amber, do you have any questions?
No, at the very beginning when you talked about all of this, I thought when you said the sports and some of the kids are into sports and all that, if they do get into the activities and that, because we have a lot of kids that are super into sports and all their activities, how do they balance it? We tried to do a um, geek sports club and some other clubs, and a lot of times the kids won't even join because they're like, no, I'm gonna try. I already know I'm trying out for this, I'm trying out for that. Um, does it help? Because then I try to get kids to stay after school and all that. They're like, I have practice, I have this, I have that.
Yeah.
Did you, how did you deal with that? Or was that really a problem once you got going? Or,
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge problem because they do have these extracurricular things going on. So I always ran my program multiple times in the year so that, like in the fall, I'm not going to get the soccer or football kids, but I might get them in the winter after school. In the winter, I'm not going to get my basketball kids, but my football kids were like, okay, like, let's do it. Um, and a big attraction from the athletes is that if you let them choose and explore problems they are passionate about, they
Mhm.
might or most likely will pick a sports related invention to work on.
Yeah.
And that is a huge motivator to not go to practice some days because they're like, I am redesigning a helmet in football to help my peers. One of my students just recently designed a new shoulder blade pads. So
Oh,
super excited to do that because they don't exist. Um, so I always ran it a couple of different times to be able to reach different kids. But then when the kids realize that they can invent or solve a problem in their sport, that's when they're like, okay, I really want to work on this because we have some problems. Um, so it's a really cool draw to those after school clubs for athletes. But you're right, total problem because
yeah.
when it's sports season, they have so many things going on. But if you host it when they're not in their sport, um, they're pretty game to come and do it.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no,
It's
that
good
would be
insight.
cool.
I just want to add one more thing briefly too. Double down on everything Christine was saying. I had the same thing with my students when I was doing um, science fair and engineering projects with them. And also, I think that for a lot of students, um, one of the draws of sports well, a couple of the draws are community and recognition.
Mhm.
So as much as you can build community with your students, the more that they'll feel like a part of a team on your invention or science fair groups too. And then second is the recognition piece. And so I think just kind of echoing what Christine mentioned before, the importance of them getting to present to real world audiences, I think is it cannot be overstated. And I had a couple students who played baseball. And they had a baseball game the same night that we were also having a family presentation night for the research projects they had done. And at first, they were thinking, oh man, like I don't know if I'll be able to do both things. But then they felt so motivated to be able to present this to their families that they figured it out with their baseball coach because they really wanted to be able to be there also for their team because it was a team research project. They wanted to be there for their research teams as well, and also to get the chance to really shine in front of their families. And so I think as much as you can emphasize also opportunities for community building and recognition, that also fulfills those similar needs that they get from their sports teams.
Yeah, invention is a sport.
Yeah, exactly.
It can be their off-season sport for sure. That was a good question. I'm not sure I've ever been asked that question. That was a really good question because it does go to the problems of after-school clubs. It speaks to that.
Yeah, I've just had some problem with that, trying to start up some sciencey things in a real very sporty area. And
Yeah,
you already have kids that they've already planned it out for years what they're doing. And so it's hard to kind of squeeze into that and say there's a little bit of time.
yeah, yep, yep. We've all been there. When I show them, that's a good point. Like, how do you even get kids interested? I show them sport inventions. I show them kids sport inventions so they know that they can bring in their love of sports. And then I have this great, he's now in college, but he was a young inventor who said, I did it inventing for my sport didn't take away from me practicing my sport. It actually brought me closer to my sport because I had to understand things I never had to understand about it. And I was like, oh, you're so much more brilliant than me. That was amazing at 20 years old. And
I love
that's
that
always
so
stuck with
much.
me, right? Like
Yeah.
that has always stuck with me that he didn't feel like it was taking him away and like taking time away. He felt closer and more like drawn in by the sport. And I was like,
Mhm.
yes, that exactly what he said.
Which is such the power of invention projects, right? And invention
Yeah,
education in general is that it does provide students with an opportunity to really deepen their understanding of
yeah,
things that they already care about. But now they're getting to experience those things in a new way.
yeah,
And so that's a really great story too. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah. It's always stuck with me.
That's amazing. Any other questions, Amber, that you thought of?
That's the biggest one. I actually gave me a lot of ideas and ways to things to consider and put it in, especially like you said, this time of year is good to throw some new things at them just to see what's going to happen. And so I've got a few things over the next couple of weeks. I'm like, ooh, maybe I'll try this, try that. So thank
Yeah. Well, and at this point, anything that gets you off the stage and gets
you.
them just thoroughly engaged, you off the stage, correcting what you need to get correct, like what you need to still correct,
Hmm.
planning
Yes.
exams or whatever. Like it's a brilliant time to do some invention stuff because I promise you they will be engaged and you can just let them go with it and they will.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the good information and ways to get started.
No, I love your
Yeah.
spirit. Thank you for that. We need more teachers who are willing to just take that leap, which is the hardest part, especially
Mhm.
when you're so busy.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amber, for your participation, your questions, and thank
Mhm.
you so much, Christine. This has been so amazing. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about this and share these amazing ideas with us.
Oh my gosh, I hope this isn't the last time we meet. So happy to help or again, just brainstorm ideas with you anytime.
And if you
Absolutely.
ever find that doppelganger, you'll have to let me know.
If I can remember who this person is, I'm taking a picture and I'm sending it to you.
Great.
I'm going, Amber, meet Amber.
That's right.
Sounds great. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.